Reuters reported that at the recent World Economic Forum in Davos, a common worry had come into light. This was, of course, the talent drain of executives on Wall Street. This as the industry continues to experience bad publicity, big losses, as well as scandals that are reported time after time. So when current executives leave, who will take over the giant financial firms? We're discussing this, of course, in the South African context as well, and seeing what trends we're seeing here in South Africa with Johan Redling-Hayes, Chairman of Heidrich and Struggles SA, and Debbie Goodman-Bhyat, MD of Jackhammer Executive Headhunters, joining us, of course, there from Cape Town. Thanks so much for your time, Debbie. Johan, I'll start off with you. Tell us about the state of the jobs market in the financial sector in South Africa.
Well, to pick up on your comment that in the United States people are defecting out of financial services, we're not finding that at all. I think it's an outside perception that banks are negative and have done badly and are not a place to go to. But inside, people who have the qualifications and the background to be in financial services stay there.
Mm-hmm. So what are, I mean, when we're looking at the global context though, I assume that does have repercussions for the local industry here. For example, bonuses and the way people are remunerated is changing. I mean, does that reduce the attractiveness of going into finance?
It might reduce it marginally, but I think the competitiveness of people who go into this field just makes them respond better to the challenge, for example, of not getting a bonus because things are going wrong. So it's getting a lot tougher, if that's the right word. It's harder to make as much money as they used to make, but people are still in there. Mm-hmm. The people who lost their bonuses in the UK, in the City of London and in New York, are not out of the industry. They're just working harder, I think.
Mm-hmm. Debbie, I mean, what are your views? I mean, it just every day you hear, for example, JP Morgan, the latest, coming through with job cuts. We know Barclays also came through with a massive announcement around job cuts recently. But this, of course, is not a new phenomenon if you're looking at the global context. How has this impacted the local market here when it comes to jobs? What have you seen over the past few years?
Yeah, couldn't agree with Johan more. It's not having the kind of significant impact that one may think there would be. In South Africa, we still find that top skills in all industries, but certainly in financial services, remain scarce. We're absolutely not seeing an exodus at all. Certainly there are people who decide that they're going to make a change for various reasons, but we're seeing that there is still a reason and rationale for top people in the industry sector to be there, to stay there, to still enjoy being in the industry. Absolutely, bonuses are not what they used to be. The whole market has corrected on several occasions, and so everybody's working harder for a lot less cash these days, but there's no exodus.
Mm-hmm. But I suppose South Africa, being a developing country, has a skills issue here and a skills shortage.
Yeah, I would say that's probably a good reason why we're not seeing the same trend here, because in the US they're arguing that the top talent coming out of universities, they're looking to rather build businesses, they're looking to be more innovative, and the financial industry isn't really providing those opportunities anymore. But locally, I think there's still a lot of scope, especially on the continent. There's still so much to be done in terms of financial services. So you could argue that, you know, the innovation, the scope for innovation, the scope for really making a difference in Africa is perhaps greater than anywhere else at the moment, and financial services offers a great opportunity to do that.
Is there a strong demand coming through from Africa? Are you seeing? Are you placing jobs on the continent?
There's a strong demand from the continent into Africa, because Africa is a big place for investment now. So we have private equity firms in Europe and in the UK and in the United States wanting to find people in Africa to run their investments.
Africans to run their businesses.
Yes, absolutely. But the point that Jessica made, I think, is a very important one, that people coming out of top universities and business schools now are increasingly wanting to start their own businesses. So whereas in the past they might have opted for a big job in a big bank, these days it's much more attractive for many of those people to start something on their own. They want to do something really smart, and it's much more appealing.
I just wanted to come in there and say I kind of disagree a little bit with him. I mean, I've certainly met a lot of people that have chosen the career path of finance and have found themselves questioning themselves after this tsunami has sort of hit the financial world. I think South Africa's been far less affected by that because our banks weren't hit that hard. The future of finance, though, is going to be a very different industry. It's going to be a lot more regulated. It's probably going to be a lot more boring. The days of the cowboy trader with the Porsche in the parking lot are probably over, and it might not attract those sorts of people. As Johan was saying, very entrepreneurial people would maybe rather choose to start their own
the
business.
opportunity to be an entrepreneur, as they call it, within a banking or financial space is being reduced with all the regulation and,
Well, I think the days
taking
of easy money and fat bonuses are probably over. The other thing is, I read a very interesting piece a couple of years ago. It was on Bloomberg, and one of the guys wrote this piece, and he said, in every generation you have a career path that makes most of the money and attracts the best people. And I forget the order, but at one point it was oil, then it was automotives, then it was plastics, and it was the tech bubble in the 90s, and probably the sort of 2000 up to 2008 and maybe late 90s was the financial industry. And I wonder whether that is now over. And that's sort of what the article was saying, that it is no longer the career of choice. Its time has come and gone. I don't know what Johan and Debbie think. Maybe South Africa is a bit different because the banks and a lot of financial institutions still pay quite well. I just wonder whether there might be other career paths of the future that could be better.
Yeah. Johan,
if you're a financially qualified person and if you have that instinct, you will make a living there no matter what the circumstances are. Yes, there is much more regulation, but financially skilled people, top corporate finance people, are resourceful. They work around the compliance issues. These are still people who want to drive Porsches. They still want to do well, and they'll find a way to do it. Just like regulating more tax legislation, people will still find a way to duck it if they want to.
Debbie, do you think that the appeal of going into finance has waned? Because anecdotally, I also know a lot of people who've questioned whether they want to stay in finance or become entrepreneurs because they know their bonus at the end of the year is going to be a lot smaller, and they know that perhaps their job isn't as safe as they thought it was before.
Look, there are two different things there. The one is about people wanting to enter into the industry, and I've been specializing in the financial services sector for about 15 years. I can absolutely agree that the allure and the idea that financial services would be the holy grail of careers is very different. Regulation has really been a game changer, and so the days of the past have changed irredeemably, and the industry is unrecognizable. And as a result, the idea that one would finish university and go into an investment firm or financial services company or a bank and have this career and earn loads and loads and loads of outrageous money, that doesn't exist anymore. And I think that's realistic and that's fine. But just as graduates are looking to go into financial services, still they would be considering going into other corporate sectors. The question is, are they choosing to be entrepreneurs? Yes, I think where there are lower barriers to entry, certainly people coming out of university with limited skills and experience have the opportunity perhaps to start up their own businesses. But individuals who are hardwired to be entrepreneurs will do their own thing. Not everybody's got that DNA, and so the people who are meant to be in corporate will join one or other corporate industry. It's not a choice of financial services or entrepreneurship. It's financial services or perhaps some other industry sector.
Or it's entrepreneurship within financial services, because the sort of people who might have gone into a big bank to be a corporate finance expert in one of those big organizations now might not be in the big organization, but they'll start a small corporate finance boutique outside, so they can be an entrepreneur and in financial services.
So they can have the best of both.
Yes.
Well, there we go. I mean, you have started to see, just boutique fund managers, and asset managers and those kind of things in South Africa starting to really come to the fore, and some great managers who have moved onto those spaces. But what are banks doing to remain attractive? What are you seeing from your side, and to lure in the right talent?
One of the major banks here is now handing out iPads and iPhones and doing all kinds of clever things for new clients. I think they're doing the same thing for people to come and work for them. They're very selective. They want the best people, and the best people are automatically attracted to dynamic, bright, thrusting organizations.
But then why are they working for banks? I'm just teasing. But what I'd like to know though is it's not only what the banks are doing to attract people, and as you were saying, small boutique industries, are flourishing, and people are rather moving into that. South Africa is still a very, very small economy. How much space is there for that?
How much space is there for what?
For entrepreneurship in the financial sector.
Huge amount. You've just said it. The small boutique, the drive for independence is so strong. And if you look at the people coming out of business schools, they're so imbued with the idea of entrepreneurship that they want to start something irrespective of what their early background was before they went into the MBA. So the people want to start small operations. There's huge opportunity, and there's huge opportunity into Africa as well, because with private equity being as dynamic as it is, you can have something of any size.
Good point.
Sam, to answer your earlier question about what are local banks doing to attract young, dynamic talent, I'm not sure what they're doing locally, but in the US, what they are trying to do is broaden their sort of recruiting horizon. So whereas before they would maybe only take people from a certain background with certain qualifications, they wouldn't go for the quirkier recruit, so to speak. Whereas the IT industries, those in Silicon Valley, are attracted to those who think out the box, who've moved around in the careers. So I think the banking industry, certainly in the US, are looking for people with more diverse backgrounds, with different approaches to work and perhaps life as well. And I think that banks are going to have to follow that lead.
Not necessarily the kind of cookie cutter model of the typical chartered accountant.
Are you finding that in South Africa? Because I know when I've met lots of overseas fund managers, it's not unusual to meet one who had a BA as his undergrad.
Exactly.
Very rare in South Africa though.
Well, it's becoming increasingly more an awareness that people with a good arts degree or a background is a more likely lateral thinker, and you don't just want a CA, you want somebody who can add energy and kind of creativity to the thing.
But are they actually doing that though?
Yeah. It's beginning.
I mean, okay, so, but if you've got a BA and an arts degree, you wonder why you'd want to go and work in a bank. You obviously have to think laterally as to how you'd be able to express yourself in a bank. Debbie, are banks open to this, a different type of recruitment process?
So far, not that I've seen. I really am still seeing that. Well, first of all, let me say that because we're working mostly at an executive level, most of the people operating at that level have really got some kind of technical of math or finance or business qualification, usually a CA or a business finance coupled with an MBA. I have yet to see recruitment strategies from financial services that are embracing people without a high level of numeracy and numeric qualification in their undergraduate degree. Whereas in Europe, it's absolutely perfectly acceptable for somebody with a master's in philosophy or a liberal arts background to find themselves in financial services. I don't think we're as open as that in the South African market, which is a bit of a pity because I think that diversity of thought and different backgrounds and creative individuals who've done alternative undergraduate degrees could certainly add some flavor to the pot.
I fully agree with Debbie. South Africa is still a landscape where a BA is known as bugger all. I mean, that's what everyone, that's the term everyone rattles off. And I just remember the first time I met a fund manager whose degree was a BA. I had to look at it about 3 times, and I think I asked him, do you really have a BA? Is that business administration? He was like, no, it's a Bachelor of Arts. It's a very, very unusual thing in this market. And look, maybe the banks will fire back and say, well, that's why we didn't have a banking crisis like the rest of the world. I don't know. But
those creative types getting too involved in the financial sector.
Maybe I'm just wrong.